They were adamantly against it. That's why militias are talked about in the Second Amendment, you fucks. Because militias
and a well-regulated militia kept their weapons where? Not at their house.
Right. And so the Posse Comitatus Act was signed to prevent the United States military from being used in civilian law enforcement purposes, except when expressly authorized by law. And when would it be expressly authorized by law, you might ask? Well, it's expressly authorized by law in the Insurrection Act of 1807, right? The Insurrection Act allows the President of the United States to deploy the United States military to regain sovereignty, control of the United States of America from invasion or incursion. Okay? So what we have here is Donald Trump in his presidential memoranda of military mission for sealing the southern border of the United States and repelling invasion, right? Giving them parcels of land, hundreds of miles at the southern border, that they are now freely allowed they have freedom of movement along that southern border. And he did that 9 days before the end of the 90-day time period that he gave the Cirrhosis of Defense and the Department of Homeland Security to come up with their detailed plan on how to regain control of the southern border.
Yeah, and can I say one more? Okay, so this is, and I want to be clear because I want to make this connection, and I did a lot of research, and then you fill in. So so the Posse Comitatus Act, right, protects Americans. It's essentially protecting American citizens from the military, enforcing laws on U.S. soil. Yeah. Now, there's one loophole, and that's essentially, if you want to know what MAGA's done, what I said, America First Legal, which is Stephen Miller has done, is look for all these little known loopholes like the Alien Enemies Act. Now it's called, I believe, the military purpose doctrine, right? Let me give you an example. So if, let's say a crazy U.S. citizen, which this has happened recently, like breaks into a U.S. military base, right? Sneaks onto a U.S. military base and is doing whatever. I mean, this has happened, raises hell or is trying to steal something or gain access to military base, which could put, military secrets or the military in danger. Around the military purpose doctrine, right? They are allowed to then detain that U.S. citizen temporarily until local civilian law enforcement can essentially collect him and, give him due process under civilian law. Yeah. Now, so let me help you. So that is anytime someone breaches what they call a military installation. What Donald Trump has done is annex hundreds of miles of federal borderlands across 3 states and declare it and transfer it to the Department of Defense and declare it a military installation. And let me help you because people don't understand this. But when you cross over, and the most brave ones do, you have to when you cross the southern border, if you're crossing in Arizona, New Mexico, and parts of Texas, you have stretches of hundreds of miles of desolate desert. I mean, it's the most dangerous. They purposely funnel people into what they call death zones. I mean, that's how we controlled immigration because there was such a minuscule chance that you could cross and survive. Right. What Donald Trump is now doing is he's created this strip across all of this desert that is a military installation. So once you cross into this land, which, I mean, there's nothing there, you won't even know, but now you're a person who's broke into a U.S. military installation.
Right. Yep. And so now the military has freedom of movement across that land, right? Giving them dominion over those parcels of land. And because you're now on there, the military is now able to conduct law enforcement operations to detain you.
could be unalived on site. I mean, whatever. Yep. And imagine they're going to assume, and I'm just saying this, that these are undocumented immigrants, whoever they are, God, and that now it's looked at as this is a foreign national attacking a military installation.
Right. Yep.
It's an invasion.
Right. Yep. And the invasion argument, I've been talking about this for a while too. The reason that he's using that word is I think it's twofold. One, because he wants to desensitize people to what the actual term means. But two, he wants somebody to challenge it in court, the use of the term invasion, so that he can redefine legally what an invasion is. Because not a lot of people understand this, but under the 14th Amendment, right, with birthright citizenship, the Supreme Court ruled in like 1890 something, I can't remember the case, but that anybody born in the United States of America is an American citizen, with two exceptions. One, you are born to a foreign dignitary who's here as like an ambassador or consular or whatever. Or two, you are part of an invading army. You were born to a member of an invading army, right? Now, here's where I say that, like, I've been talking about this since he started declaring all this shit. If he can get the definition, the legal definition of invasion changed to include what they're saying is happening at the southern border, then he doesn't need to overturn the 14th Amendment. The Supreme Court has already given him a loophole to just say that anybody from this date forward who was born to somebody that was a part of this quote unquote invading force is no longer an American citizen. That would mean them, their children, and however many generations since are just now, because they're a part of this invasion force at the southern border, they're no longer citizens. Doesn't have to overturn the 14th Amendment, doesn't have to get a new amendment passed, because the Supreme Court back in the 1890s put this loophole in that they just assumed nobody would want to use for despot purposes, because we don't do that here. Fast forward to 2025, and here we are with Donald Trump saying that it's an invasion. Invasion. He continues to use invasion. Invasion.
Words matter, and he is doing that very much on purpose. You are absolutely right. And we talked about this briefly last week. Like, this is the same logic we started using, or that Israel is using with Palestine, right? Like, you declare and by the way, what's a gang? I just want you to know for definition purposes, because this is how easy it is. Any group of 3 or more people with a common purpose.
Yeah.
That's what a gang is. And now they're saying a gang is an invader, right? That is the leap of logic that we are now making. Any gang that is specific gangs, let's say cartels or anywhere brown people south of here, they identify as a gang, right? Collectively now are invading the United States. Now, what can happen during wartime invasions, right? What we've seen so far is everything leading up to the invoking of the Insurrection Act, right? Like, we've seen constant national emergencies. National emergencies are important. They give the president, and this is the word to use, and Mag, I know it's too long for you, but I'll put it into small words. Extrajudicial powers, meaning outside law and order. The president is granted extrajudicial powers. That's why he's declared an energy emergency. That's why he's declared any type of emergency this man can declare. He is declared so he can operate extrajudicially outside of the judicial branch and outside of without Congress.
Right. Yep. And enacting the Insurrection Act would just increase those executive powers that the president is allowed to use. And they're going to do it under the justification that there is an invasion at the southern border.
Can you talk about April 20th and kind of relate that now?
Sure. Yeah. So April 20th, this Sunday, is the end of the 90-day period that Donald Trump gave the Cirrhosis of Defense, Pete Hegseth, and the Department of Homeland Security to submit a detailed plan on how to regain operational control of the southern border. It's important to understand that we've never lost operational control of the southern border, but they don't want you to know that. They just want you to believe the words that are coming out of their mouth and stop trusting your lying eyes. Okay.
Wait, let me say one thing on that, by the way. Trump admitted yesterday at the Oval Office, because that is how this all has to say, is that this all has to be based on the precedent or the legal precedent that we've lost operational control of the southern border, right?
Yep.
He admitted and pointed at Pam Bondi. He said, hey, and I as a data-driven person, the average, like the last 3 years, before this last March, if you go back and look how many encounters, and I'm not talking about a 2-week rolling average anymore. I'm talking about the entire month of March. What are the average encounters in like the last 2-3 years? It's around 155,000 encounters in the month of March because weather is temperate. It's a big crossing month. It has a lot to do with weather patterns. 155,000 encounters on average the last few years at the southern border. This last March, around 7,500. I can't remember the last number. It's probably a little more than that, but I don't want to guess. So I'm just going to say somewhere around 7,500, not weekly rolling average, not 2-week rolling average, for the entire month. Right. Even before Trump had gotten into office, and I'm going to give you the numbers because I know MAGA, you don't know. The highest number of encounters of 7-day rolling averages was December 2023, right?
Yep.
From June 2024 to December 2024. So 1 year after the highest encounters ever at the southern border, Joe Biden, Trump's not in office yet, had reduced encounters by 75%.
Yep.
The operational control of the southern border, that was under control before Trump even took office.
Yes. And so
he's continued to clamp down on it and is lying about it.
Yep. And so on January 20th, he signed an executive order giving, like I said, Cirrhosis of Defense, Pete Hegseth, and the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security 90 days to come up with a plan to regain operational control. And in that executive order, he expressly indicates, should we enact the Insurrection Act of 1807? Should we enact it? Right? Now, everybody that's been paying attention, because again, I believe the words that are coming out of their mouths, right, will tell you that I fully believe, and everybody that I talk to fully believes, that Pete Hegseth and Kristi Noem are going to submit their plan on Sunday to the president, saying that we need to enact the Insurrection Act at the southern border to regain operational control of the border. When that happens, that's going to be the tipping point, guys, because the Insurrection Act gives the president unilateral executive authority to suspend civil liberties, to prevent an uprising or an incursion or a threat to the sovereignty of the United States of America, to regain control of that. So they'll start at the southern border, right? And they'll pick whatever number of days that they're going to use it. And they're going to be like, oh my God, okay, great. We've now got operational security of the southern border. But since we've already got the Insurrection Act going, we might as well use the military to go and round up the illegal immigrants that are in these illegal sanctuary cities.
The Democrat cities. And let me help you. Cities is the noun. The adjective is democratic.
Right.
When you're using the word to describe a noun, MAGA, I know you can't, I know adjective noun agreement is not your thing, but it is not Democrat cities. It is democratic cities. That's the second grade grammar and teacher in me coming up.
Yeah. And so you're going to say there's not going to be a nationwide martial law effect or anything like that. There's not enough. We don't have the resources, manpower, or equipment to enforce anything like that. So what you're going to see is targeted targeted deployments of the United States military with the purpose of rounding up illegal immigrants from sanctuary cities.
Hey, Smiling Nihilist Moon just said something great. But Matt, aren't sanctuaries cities controlled by the states? What happened to states' rights, brother?
Nah.
Isn't it the weirdest thing? No, but just follow me here. Remember, when the Dixiecrats, which were before the party switch, when Democrats or when conservatives in the South were Democrats who were using Jim Crow laws to clamp down on control, right? Remember states' rights, brother? When it was to gerrymander maps, when it was to use the Second Amendment to track down runaway slaves, then states' rights, brother, was a thing. But all of a sudden, conservatives wrest control of the federal government and they're federalists.
Yep. States'
rights, brother, no longer applies. It is the strangest thing I've ever seen.
Yep. So that's that's what a lot of people are anticipating, myself included, happening on Sunday. So that's the National Guard under the Insurrection Act. So the National Guard can be federalized as long as the governor of the state approves it. There's been 3 states, I think, so far that have said that they would be willing to approve the use of their National Guard for federal purposes.
And I talked about the test case last week. And through Freedom of Information Act requests, the crew, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington's Noah Bookbinder and Norm Eason. Norm Eason is the guy Trump keeps screaming about on Truth Social and revoked his security clearance 3 times. So it's just I think the first time it was gone. It's getting very confusing. It's because they did an investigation and discovered that Kristi Noem, this is how she became in charge of DHS, had raised the South Dakota National Guard. Mm-hmm. And in 3 separate deployments, sent them to the southern border. And how she did it was she declared an invasion. And you're like, what the F? South Dakota is nowhere near the southern border. They said that Pine Ridge Reservation, the second largest indigenous reservation in the United States, was a forward operating base. And notice, they exempted indigenous lands for when he annexed the federal lands for the Department of Defense to create a military installation. Yep. It does not include indigenous reservations. So right. What they're going to do all over the country is declare these autonomous zones, because they're technically outside U.S. jurisdiction, are forward operating bases for the cartel invasion. Mm-hmm. That allows governors to say, oh, this forward operating base for the cartel is in my state. I'm going to raise my military and offer it to Donald Trump to quell this invasion.
Yep.
By the way, Pine Ridge is not a forward operating base for the cartel. It's a lie. Kristi Noem's no longer allowed to step foot there. And the scariest part about this was what was revealed was that a Tennessee billionaire funded the second deployment, gave Kristi Noem millions. And now that's what we're moving in oligarchy. Imagine a world where if you have millions of dollars, you can raise the U.S. military.
Mm-hmm. Lee said, could that lead to National Guard standoff between active military if the governor doesn't approve? Could. It could. Yeah, it could.
Say what you said, because I thought there was not all people in the military will do it.
Yeah.
Right?
So here's the thing. Everybody throws around the term the military as if it's one body. Like one individual action that's taking place. The military isn't a thing. Okay. The military doesn't exist. There are individuals within the military, right? And those individuals, per the UCMJ, are ordered to follow lawful orders given. Okay. So if somebody feels that an order being given to them is unlawful, they are not only encouraged but required by law to not follow that order, right? That was a huge thing during the Nuremberg trials, right? The Nuremberg trials brought up a big thing for the defense was that saying I was just following orders was not a defense. Okay? That's not a defense. The United States military is ordered to follow lawful orders. And so there are, and I talk to people that are still in, there are people in the military that are looking at what's happening and are concerned about the overreach of power that the executive branch is showing and are behind the scenes working on what their actions would be in case. Okay? The military isn't a thing. There are individuals within the military that are looking at what's happening, recognizing the threat that it's posing, and are working to figure out how to undermine and resist that process from the inside. Okay? So now you also need to understand that because the military doesn't exist, and just because there are some people doing that, there are also some people in the military that are all about this. Okay? So we're going to see this kind of comes back to the question that was asked earlier, like, what is Jim Mattis doing right now? I guarantee you Jim Mattis is working extremely hard to ensure that the Constitution of the United States of America is upheld and not the whims of some wannabe dictator. Okay? That's what we need to understand. That's what people need to understand. All right? There are people that are working behind the scenes that are there are conversations being had right now from the lowest ranks to the highest ranks about what are we going to do when this happens? How are we going to answer? Okay?
Someone asked how many people are across all branches of military, and I just did a quick search. This is just as of 2023 numbers. There were 2.8 million enlisted across all branches, and then there's 738,700 reserve and National Guard members, and there's 754,000 civilian employees.
Yep.
And that's based on data from June 30th, 2024.
Yeah, that's roughly right. Yeah, it might be a little bit more. Now numbers might shift, and not exponentially one way or the other. So I would say that those are probably accurate numbers. What I will say is
why he couldn't have a Milley exactly, or a Mattis.
Right.
This is why he had to get a Pete Hegseth.
Right.
Because this is what Milley was up to, right? Opposing this type of nonsense.
Yep. You had General Milley going out and giving speeches while he was the commander of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, saying that we swear an oath to the Constitution, not a king. Right? People take that at heart. Okay? People take that to heart in the military. The military swears an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from all enemies, foreign and domestic. Okay? That is the first part of our oath of enlistment, is to protect and support defend and support the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Only after you swear that do you swear to follow the orders, the lawful orders of those coming down from above. I can't remember exactly what it is, right? But the order of the oath of enlistment is important, because the first thing you say is to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Okay? That's the first sentence, the first words that you say. I, Matthew Gordon, swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. This right here is what the United States military is sworn to uphold and defend. Not the whims of Donald Trump, not the whims of his administration, not, Goebbels Jr., Steve Miller, right? That's not what it is. There are people that take this oath seriously, and when the Constitution is being threatened, will do the right thing. There are also people that don't take this oath seriously and will just follow orders.
And that's why Trump's giving those idiots, right, people, and I'd say don't take it seriously also, or don't have a working knowledge of it, right? Trump's giving them the language by using words like alien enemies, invasion, right? He's giving them the language and the justification when the time comes to say, oh, I'm protecting against foreign and domestic enemies. That's what he's doing. He's making it in there. He's drawing the lines of confusion, quite honestly.
Yep.
I mean, it's terrifying to think about, but I do think there are many sentient, intelligent people, like you're saying. And actually, you've given me a lot of hope. And I didn't think about that. Like, I love the way you put that. There's no the military.
Right. Yeah. There's not one acting body that just does what some commander says. Everybody has agency, from the lowest private to the 4-star general. They have agency to do what is right per the Constitution. Not only do they have the right to do it, they have the obligation to do what is right by the Constitution. Right.
Yeah, and understand that, like, it's the people. Trump, we've seen, right? Trump doesn't get held accountable. Just like Matt's saying, it's not an excuse to say I was following orders, because those are the people who end up under the bus. Like, it's the lower ranks of people who are charged, who are, I mean, truthfully, that's why you shouldn't follow. Trump is probably not going to be held accountable in any real way before he unalives. It will be the people, the idiots that follow him.
Yes. And that's why it's the Marine Corps says it. I'm sure the Army says it. The NCOs are the backbone of the Marine Corps, right? NCOs, for those of you that don't know, are non-commissioned officers. They're individuals that are enlisted, that are not junior enlisted. They're not senior enlisted. They're like right there in the middle. They're that go-between between the larger force and the upper ranks, right? They're your NCOs. They're your corporals, your sergeants. I don't know how NCOs work in the Army, but in the Marine Corps, they're your corporals and your sergeants, right? They are the backbone of the military. They are the meat. That's right. They're the meat and potatoes of the military. They are where the rubber meets the road, right? When an order comes down, they say, this is what we're doing. This is how we're going about it, right? And those are going to be the people. Those people teamed up with the people from the higher echelons that are going to say this shit ain't right. And there are people in the military that are 100% going to look at this document right here, remember their oath, and refuse orders. As they should. As they should.
Yeah, because Trump can't breach. I mean, it's going to be the lower level. I agree. And does anyone know? Here's another example, because I see Navy vet in the comments. Hi. Does anyone know who's running the Navy right now? Who's the Navy secretary? Let me help you. His name's John Phelan. Well, it's Phelan. Let me help you. This man has never been in the military. He has never served in any branch of the military. He didn't go to a military school. He has no connection to anyone at all. You know who he is? Do you guys remember Dell Computers, a billionaire named Michael Dell?
Yeah.
Who made a little company called Dell Computers. He places trades. He places trades. John Phelan places trades in a 5-person office in Texas for Michael Dell. He's also an art collector. He is now running the United States Navy. Oh, also, he gave millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to Donald Trump. Yep. So what Trump can do is control these people, right at the top. That's why he had to displace 5-star generals, 4-star generals, and install literal unqualified idiots who would follow him. But he can't get to everyone. look it up. John Phelan, who's
Yeah.
running the IRS? A man who ran a putt-putt golf place. Not an accountant, not a finance degree, not an economics degree, nothing. He was in Congress for a couple years and spent his entire time trying to dismantle the IRS. Trump wants useful idiots.
Right.
He is one for Putin, and apparently he has learned that lesson. He's installed a bunch of rich, useful idiots that will do whatever he wants.
Yep. And that's the thing. Donald Trump surrounds himself. This is what I said was going to happen if he got elected, because the first administration, I truly believe that he was wanting to be taken seriously